Welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And we're starting off the show today with some PWHL news, getting their second season underway. And we want to congratulate the Toronto Sceptres. Yes, they have a name, a nickname now. Toronto Sceptres. They got their first win of the season in their home opener yesterday. We're recording this podcast on Sunday versus the Boston Fleet in a 3-1 win.
Yeah, it was a full house at Coca-Cola Coliseum. And so far, the PWHL ticket sales are showing a very positive uptick in numbers for the second season. So, I think that trend is going to continue. And
it's just the U.S. markets apparently are having a little bit more of a down.
Oh, yeah.
They're not down this year, but they're kind of the same as last year.
Right.
But they're not as good overall for the numbers as the Canadian team. So,
well, once they start and the season gets rolling, I'm sure that's going to pick up because the quality of the league is excellent and the talent is amazing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's going to end up being a really successful second season for sure.
Yeah. And, Sarah Nurse had, couple of goals yesterday, actually. So that was
good for her.
Yeah. And and apparently, like from what I saw anyways on YouTube, and of course I didn't watch any of the game. I should have. I'll make sure I do that the next game. But the atmosphere at the game with the highlights, it was like really, the fans are really into it. So that was great to see.
Did you buy our tickets yet?
No.
We have to get our tickets.
Another
for that
thing
game in March.
I gotta do.
Gotta put it on the to-do list.
Yeah, because the Scepters are like, there's very limited tickets for the games from now through till March. It's only in March that I've seen some tickets. So yes, I definitely have to do that.
Yes, get on that.
Yeah. All right. Another thing we're going to get on now too is our show is sponsored by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen.
With the largest selection of odds on everything from the NHL to football, NBA and college basketball to UFC and MMA too. Head to the website betonline.ag today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Please gamble responsibly, though. If you or someone you know needs some support or advice, you can reach out to Connex Ontario or an organization near you.
All right. So another quick reminder, when listening to our show, if you can just hit that follow button, or if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. More followers will help us get recognized as a source for Leafs content. And we can make the show even better for you, and you won't miss an episode.
So we're going to get right into the show now, and we're going to start things off with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then for our third period segment, we welcome back as our guest, Toronto Star columnist and author, Damien Cox. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right. So the good, the bad, the ugly. All right. This is, it's only a couple of games this past week. So it was kind of hard to get the content here, but definitely my good is Chris Tanev. My fellow Canadian Mastoian background. I had to do it, even though Sil did mention to me one more time, are you going to have Chris Tanev as your highlight reel or your good player all season long? But I mean, the guy is just phenomenal.
He did score a goal too yesterday, his first goal as a Leaf. So that in itself warrants him being on this list.
That's right. Yeah. Otherwise, if we were having the highlight reel, that probably would have been my number one too. But yeah, he got his first goal and an assist yesterday versus Tampa. He's still second in the league with block shots, 73. Block shots overall, behind Rasmus Anderson of Calgary, who was 75. It's kind of funny. There's like from week to week, it's like they're always two apart. But yeah, no. And I mean, he just, the way he plays the game, he boxes out players very well and uses his stick very well, to like deflect shots. And he he takes very limited penalties too for a defenseman anyways. Like you don't see him in the box that often.
Yeah.
But,
he's not like that. Like he's like a warrior. Like he's tough as nails, but he's not, he's just subtly in your face. Like his game is just so subtle, but so effective.
yeah.
Like that's what I notice about him. He's not one of these guys that is like in everybody's face, and he's just very calm and stoic out there. And he just does everything right.
Yeah. And not, like he's not like a banger guy, like a bang, crash and bang kind of guy. He's he's just not that style of player. But what he does do with his style is the positioning, like I said, the stick, like having it in the right spot, deflecting shots, and just angling players out of the front of the net, that sort of thing, right? So
it's interesting because we had Giordano on our team, obviously, up until last season, and he was a mainstay in Calgary as well. I don't know like how much they cross paths there, but their stories are sort of similar. Their play is sort of similar.
Yeah.
They both kind of have that same kind of just strong defensive game.
Yeah, because Giordano wasn't, again, he wasn't a like rough and tumble kind of guy or whatever, right? But he just played the position very well, calmly, and I guess you notice them, but in a different way. Not to say that they're like right out there, like with the big hits or anything like that, right? But yeah. So definitely, Chris Tanev is my good for this week. And what's your good?
Oh, my good. Like again, like we just got to keep going with the back end here. My good again is Joe Wall. Last night on Saturday, he played an incredible game, versus Tampa. I got to give Berube a low-key shout out for calling the timeout. I actually love that he does that, to kind of reel them in when things are starting to go off the rails a little bit. But Joseph Wall had some really key saves. I'm not going to go into all his stats because we did all that last week for our quick hits episode, but he is just looking so calm and making some really huge key saves in really important moments in the game. So, I'm definitely giving him a shout out.
Yeah. None of the goals that he let in yesterday, like he didn't have a chance on any of them. And they were all like 6-on-4 or 6-on-5.
No, and I'm finding that all the goals that are being scored on the Leafs now, which, they need to maybe pay attention to this is when they basically, they collapse defensively, just and block the goalie's view.
Yeah.
When they're being screened, by multiple players. And of course, like,
I think
where they got the goals was when they got down to the like dying minutes of the game and, scrambles in front of the net and stuff like that. So yeah, when you're talking about blocking shots or getting in the eyes of the goalie, like Benoit was, he was trying to block a shot. And of course he wasn't fully in position to do that I think it was the third goal, the Tampa goal on the 6-on-4. And, I mean, you gotta get out of the view of the goalie basically so that they can see to stop the puck. So, but I mean, I loved, it was point blank. Before we came on the show, we were talking with Sil, like there was a point blank opportunity at the end of the game. I believe it was Cam Atkinson. It could have been Gensel as well. But it was unbelievable. He was like by himself in front of the net with like 5 seconds left in the game, and he stopped it while Joseph Wall stopped it. It was phenomenal. And I mean, it would have made it 5-4, and they still would have lost. Tampa would have lost. But yeah, no, definitely worthy of being one of our good players for this past week. All right, so moving on to the bad. They've managed to stay off the list of the bad and the ugly, actually, for quite some time, but it's the referees. I mean, the call last night on Oliver Ekman-Larsson at the end of the game to make it that 6-on-4 we were just talking about, that was just, it was brutal. And the funny thing is, I totally forgot about this. So Jake Gensel
gave Oliver Ekman-Larsson the shot in front of the net, basically like a cross check to the side of the ribs or whatever. And OEL gave it back to him. And of course, the refs gave OEL the penalty, not Jake Gensel. But the funny thing is, back on October 22nd here, it were the same two players. And OEL got fined for on that play for cross-checking Jake Gensel. I forget how
So maybe Gensel figures, I'm going to see if this will work again.
Again, yeah. I was just funny how it's a second, like it's the same two players. And yeah, but again, he got away with it basically. Like he didn't get any penalty for his part of it.
Yeah.
And Oya went to the box and of course Tampa scored, right?
I figure, I think traditionally they always call the retaliatory one more than the initial one.
Yeah, I know. I was actually surprised. We were talking with you about like Craig Simpson on Hockey in Canada. He actually went to the defense of the Leafs there, saying he doesn't understand why Oliver Ekman-Larsson got the penalty and not Jake Gensel as well. Like they should have both gone if you're going to call it.
Honestly, I think that they should call coincidentals a lot more than they do. Because usually there's some guy starting it and some guy retaliates. It's not only the guy who retaliates that should get dinged.
Yeah.
In cases like this, I 100% agree. Like they could be calling more of these coincidentals. We would have a lot more forum for hockey, which we probably should.
Especially at the end of the games too. Like with less than a couple of minutes left in the game and being closer scores, let's just say. I mean, to me, it's just the refs are just trying to, I guess, saying, okay, well, it's time for us to put on a show now too, right? Like to get them, to get us fans like we are doing right now, talking about them, but it's not in a good way. So they are bad in our.
Well, I guess, any publicity is good publicity for some people. So, all right.
What's your bad?
My bad is, I'm still going to go into the injuries. I think now we're hearing now though that Jake McCabe might be all right. But, when I saw him go down last night, I was just like, come on, like we get one guy and we lose a guy, like we're not, how are they going to be able to, create the chemistry that they need when they've got guys coming in and out of the lineup constantly.
And it's funny though, because I thought the same thing. I thought, oh God, he's going to be out. And now it's going to be the defenseman's turn because basically our defense has been pretty good through this. Exactly. It's been all the forwards. I'm like, don't tell me now it's going to be all the defensemen are going to start to get injured. We don't need this. But yeah, so I just, when it comes to injuries, I mean, Austin Matthews came back last night too, so that's a positive on that.
He played pretty well. I actually was pretty impressed that they didn't start him on the same line back with Marner. They didn't put them back immediately.
Yeah.
So that's good, and I actually think that that's what they should do. Like, you can put them together at any time. They have instant chemistry. It's not like you have to rebuild that. But when you got JT going the way he's going right now, I think you got to leave things where it is.
Yeah, they seem to have Marner and JT seem to have that chemistry that they had when JT almost had the 50-goal season. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was funny because Willie was just flying last night. Like, I know, but Tampa.
I don't know. But when I saw him on the bench, I don't know. He looked very serious. I'm like, is he happy to be on this line? I don't know. But anyways,
I think he's
showing he's happy enough on the ice. So
yeah, because he, I think actually what it did was that it gave him a lot more open ice. I mean, come on, he was playing with, what was it, Holmberg and I don't know who, Minton or somebody. Like, I mean,
he was the one stuck with the patchwork.
Yes, yeah. So I think he's doing okay, and he managed to get that nice empty netter for me and my Tim's picks.
Yes,
yeah. All right.
Well, anyway, we just hope that the infirmary start letting out some of their casualties and that they're able to.
Max Domi
I would like to see that. It really is crucial that it be over this next month. We're in December now. Because going into the new year, if you still got a lot of people on on injured reserve, that's, this is like a crucial time for people to start getting healthy, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So as I just mentioned, we are into December. November is done, and the Leafs record for the past month is 8-3-1. So as we record this podcast, they are second in the Atlantic, 1 point behind the Florida Panthers. But the Leafs have 2 games in hand. But I hope we're not going to be regretting or, like that game on Wednesday. We should have showed up better for that game.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Because we were ahead of them by 1 point, but now we are behind them again. So, yeah.
It was kind of, that game versus Florida was, I don't know. It was just like you knew that they were going to come out strong because Paul Maurice, like they were on a 4-game losing streak, right? And Paul Maurice apparently was really hard on them, to get going. And yeah, I mean, we were shorthanded too. There was only Matthews still wasn't playing, Nyes wasn't there, and I mean, we had won 4 games in a row. We were on a 4-game winning streak, so things were piling up to that point. I mean, it would have been nice to get the win, and but they didn't. So whatever, you can't win them all, as they say. No. Although but at least we managed to spread ourselves away from Tampa with the win last night. So
for sure. All right. So now we're going to switch gears a bit and move on to our third period segment, where we are welcoming back to our show Toronto Star columnist and author Damien Cox to get his thoughts on the Leafs and other NHL news.
Okay, we are just past the U.S. Thanksgiving point in the NHL season, which is the unofficial marker for teams' hopes of making the playoffs. To talk about where the Leafs are at and thoughts on Team Canada's roster for the Four Nations Faceoff, it's great to have back as our guest, journalist, broadcaster, and author Damien Cox.
So many Leaf fans know Damien from his sports columns with the Toronto Star newspaper. Damien is also the executive director of the Northern Star Award Committee. The Northern Star Award is an honor awarded yearly to Canada's top athlete. And if you're also looking for a Christmas gift for that special Leaf fan, he has authored several books on hockey, including quite a few on the Leafs. So welcome, and thanks for joining us again on our show, Damien.
Well, nice of you guys to give me a shout. There's always tons to talk about, that's for sure. And at this time of year, whether it's Canada's Athlete of the Year or how the Leafs are doing, or this year an international hockey tournament, there's lots to talk about, isn't there?
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so let's get into it then. You were last on our show way back in April on our 100th episode. And so it's been a while. And at that time, you said to us that former Leaf coach Sheldon Keefe should have been let go at the end of the previous season, so in 2023. So we all know what happened, and now Craig Berube is the Leafs head coach. So through the first quarter of the season, what do you think of Berube's impact on the on the Leafs, on the team so far?
Well, I mean, I think it really depends how you want to look at it. Like in a very general overall sense, they're kind of the same. Results are basically what you would expect out of Toronto en route to another 100-point season and a playoff spot. So the results are basically the same, but I think the team and the way the team plays are very different. Now, to be fair to Sheldon Keefe, New Jersey Devils are doing pretty darn well too. And so, he deserves credit for that. But I think Brad Treliving wanted to play or change the way the Leafs played. He wanted a different style of play than what they were playing before. And in an NHL today where almost all teams play kind of the same style, I find it very different what the Leafs are doing under Berube than what they were doing under Keefe. Now, whether that'll last, I think it probably will at this point. Whether it'll make a difference in the playoffs, weren't the last 3 games of the playoffs last year all 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1? Mm-hmm. The problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs when it's really come down to it in the playoffs the last few years has been lack of scoring, particularly from their key guys to come up with big goals. So being more defensive, will that make them more likely to get goals from those guys? Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah. Do you think that, I guess the style that they play now, do you think like that's more of an identity actually forming too? Like they're taking on the coach's identity actually forming too? Like they're taking on the coach's identity of Craig Berube? Like, because
I mean, identity is such a tough one. I mean, Craig Berube, I mean, I covered him as a player. I mean, I know what kind of player he was. He wasn't a particularly accomplished defensive player. He was a big grinding guy who could fight. I think they are clearly paying more attention to some defensive details, and they're clearly more intent on getting the puck out of their zone than they are about possessing the puck, which was everything under Sheldon Keith's possession.
Right.
So, and I think it's changing the identity of the team, but, that takes a while, and, it takes some trials and tribulations. Often it takes a losing streak to get guys to really dial in. But I think their best guys generally are into that style of play.
Yeah. They're buying in, basically.
Yeah, but it's still a top-heavy team, right?
Yeah.
Top two lines do all the scoring. I think the additions of Tanev and Ekman Larsson on the back end have changed them to some degree. And probably the biggest changes, their goaltending right now is as good as anybody's in the National Hockey League. And that's a real change for them.
Yeah.
For sure. So you touched on a little bit of, what it might come down to in the playoffs. And so the Leafs have had a whole bunch of injuries. And through that, Nick Robertson has been given the opportunity to show what he can do. And he finally scored last night after 12 games without a goal. So the Leafs' lack of depth scoring is a problem, and that often shows up in the playoffs as well. So what do you think the best option is for the Leafs and Nick Robertson going forward? Or, what do they need to do to maybe kind of supplement that? Because clearly there's still an issue there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nick Robertson deserves a bit of credit for really improving other parts of his game than just scoring. And then he was finally rewarded with a goal, which I think you could see the relief for him and how excited he was to get a goal.
Yeah, but the whole arena heard him.
Yeah. What I really noticed about him is, his defensive play, his checking, his, sticking with a game plan, his, doing whatever, and then waiting for his chances to really improve. So I think I think there's a chance he can contribute, and continue to over the season, but they're going to have to go get somebody. I mean, if they're going to be taken seriously, Max Pacioretty was showing some flashes, but he's not going to be healthy. And, beyond that, Max Domi, I think a lot of people like his versatility up and down the lineup. He can play different spots, but he can't score. So they're going to have to go out and get somebody, and they will. They always do. When people ask me, how are the Leafs going to do in the playoffs? This time of year, I said, well, if you can tell me who's going to be playing for the Leafs in April, then I'll tell you how I think they're going to be doing. And we know they're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 different people playing for them, by that time. So, I think it's pretty clear they need at least one more, person who can score goals. And if Austin Matthews is going to have an injury plagued season, then that just, emphasizes the need even more, for them to go out and get somebody. You're going to get guys like Alex Nylander and Grabenkin and guys who show flashes of stuff, but they need something more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And, I guess, the depth at center too, like you're saying with Austin Matthews, if he's going to be hurting a lot of going through the injury, fighting through it. I mean, he was a bit rusty last night, but I think it's been a month or so since he's been off. So he'll get back to where he should be. Anyways, he got 2 assists considering versus Tampa. So that wasn't bad. But there's not much for Brad Treliving to trade though either, because his predecessor, to make a trade for a scoring winger or a center, I just don't know how they're going to do that, and how they're going to. They're going to have to unless they trade go out if they want to go big time Easton Cowan.
Right. That's right. I mean, that's the chips they have to play. Easton Cowan, maybe Fraser Minton, depending on how people look at him. first round picks. It's always the same kind of things that you're looking to move when you're one of the top teams in the league. And they chose not to do that last year. So it'll depend where they are, in March and what kind of a team. I mean, I think if you're playing a more defensive style, then it keeps you competitive, even if you're not scoring. But at some point they're going to need, more.
Yeah.
I think the exciting thing for them is that Mitch Marner has come out and demonstrated, which I really felt was the case, was not Mitch Marner in the playoffs last year. That was an injured Mitch Marner playing on a high ankle sprain, barely able to skate. And I think you're seeing what he can do. And, I mean, his leverage and, increases game by game by game because of what he can do for that team. And, I think, so that's an exciting thing. Nylander, is obviously scoring.
Yeah, he played.
Nice. Looks like he's going to be able to give a little bit more. But there's, this is a team that's not scoring as much as it used to, but is giving up fewer goals. So if they can add a little offense, that might be what they need.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to switch the conversation now over to Team Canada. And with the final roster decisions coming up for the Four Nations Faceoff tournament. First, I want to know, are you looking forward to the tournament? It's a first time in a long time. What do you think of this? Is it first time in a long time that we've seen the best on best hockey? Like, are you looking forward to it as opposed to the All-Star game that the NHL normally has?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
that. As opposed to the All-Star game, definitely. I would like it more than the All-Star game. I mean, the All-Star game is something that just needs to go. It's a waste of everybody's time. I was thinking about this morning, and how exciting it used to be. I mean, I remember back as far as 72 and then 76, and then when they actually had tryouts for these teams. And that was such a cool thing and such a thing for hockey fans to really be part of. And you had not to take you all the way back to 72, but, back then you had, they went into camp with Paul Henderson and Ronnie Ellis as afterthoughts, and they threw them with a young Philadelphia center named Bobby Clark, and they ended up being the team's top line. And Henderson, of course, made history. So those are the kinds of things that happen when you're trying out. This business of naming the team, as I guess the last tryouts would have been, I can't remember 96, definitely 91, that Canada Cup. So it might have been the last Canada Cup. So they don't do that anymore. So that takes something out of it. 4 teams, it's like, I understand that in 2024, the knee-jerk reaction of much of the media seems to be to just get excited about anything the NHL decides to do. Expansion to Seattle, fantastic. Move to Utah, unbelievable. A Four Nations Cup, best on best. This is amazing. Will I watch? Or I'll watch. Does it mean anything? No, it doesn't mean anything at all, because it's not a true best on best tournament. And it'll be, a week and a half's entertainment and probably some good hockey. But I wouldn't take it much more than that.
So do you think it means anything to the players though? Like kind of dipping their toe into this best on best right now? I mean, I guess we can't really get into their heads, but
yeah, I would say so. Like they're proud athletes. They want to play, with the best, when they get the opportunity. I mean, the dynamics have changed so dramatically. Like, this is a money grab by the NHL. That's all.
Oh, for sure.
And,
as usual.
And the Players Association. So the NHL players understand that, that this is that's part of their thing, is to participate and generate money and generate revenue for the league. What they get out of it as individuals, I guess you'd probably have to ask them. But I mean, if Canada plays Finland in the final and are able to win, Like, is that going to cause parades in the street or whatever? I mean, I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
look, it's better than the All-Star game. It's an opportunity to see Connor McDavid play with Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews play with Brady Tkachuk. And so that'll be interesting in the middle of a long grind of an 82 game NHL season. So those things I think are pluses, from an entertainment point of view. I think it's a plus. From a meaningful, point of view, not even a little bit.
Do you think it's a little bit like, though, for the Olympics, kind of like maybe like this is a trial or a tryout kind of thing for the players, like for the Olympics, like to be named to
I don't know.
for the following year? Like a little, do you think they're considering it like that way?
Some of the same people are involved choosing the teams. So, but I think pretty much everybody knows who's going to play. It's not
Right.
like it's, like I say, if there was a, I remember a young Wendell Clark going out to try out for Team Canada.
He got,
Yeah. And I remember
I was like, why did you mention that?
Steve Eiserman got cut like 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
But there was an opportunity there for guys to go and try to make the team.
Mhm.
So
I had forgotten that, and actually, you're totally right about that. That would add just like another little bit of spice to the equation, and just there would be a lot more skin in the game there. So I actually think that would be really interesting. But I don't know with this 82 game season if like they could actually do that somehow. I don't know how they would logistically do it.
They were playing 78 games back in the, it's not that much. It's really more the players don't want to get cut.
I guess.
That's all it comes down to when the players union doesn't want its players being embarrassed.
Yeah.
So that's all it means. So it's a lot easier for, Zach Hyman to be left off the roster than to have to go to a camp and get cut.
Right.
That's all it's about. So, I think hockey history has been made up of many different competitive situations over the past 50, 60 years. From, used to be Canada wasn't even in the Olympics, then Canada rejoined the Olympics, then you had Summit Series, and then you had the first Canada Cup, then you had the rendezvous stuff, and then you had more Canada Cups, and then the World Cup. And ever since Gary Bettman got his hands on this thing, international hockey has kind of just gone. The last great noteworthy event was 2010, the Olympics. Since then, I don't remember. There's nothing that jumps out at me as a great international event involving international NHL players. That's 14 years since that, and I can guarantee you this isn't going to produce one. It's just not. And I mean, look, part of the problem is practical, is that Russia is an international pariah for its invasion of Ukraine. And so it is not eligible to play in any NHL events. Now, I find it fascinating that the NHL thinks it's okay to have however many Russians there are in the league playing on a nightly basis, but they can't play in this NHL engineered tournament. And that takes a little bit of a leap of logic to understand what they're doing. But I mean, the biggest problem is that they are absolutely unwilling to commit to being part of the international hockey, competitive framework. Whether it's whatever event, they opt out all the time. Well, we're back in here. We're not this. We don't want to play in this event because of where it is, or the IHF won't pay us, or the IOC won't pay us. Now we're back in again because we like where it's being. I mean, the lack of commitment under Gary Bettman, of the many failures of the Gary Bettman regime, this is, to me, the largest. The complete way in which he has kicked around international hockey, I think, has really robbed a lot of hockey fans of real memories.
Oh, for sure. I was just thinking as you're speaking right now that there's like a whole generation, you say 14 years, that has never seen that. And I just know for my kids who are a little bit older than that, they do have those memories of like the 2010 Olympics, for example. And so those were special moments for them. And I have those moments too, because I have pictures of them in their little Team Canada jerseys, waving flags and stuff like that. And so there's like a whole generation of fans that have been robbed of that.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, Marie-Philippe Poulin has supplied us with more lasting hockey memories than any male Canadian player, because she's had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit on that, still staying with Team Canada. So when it comes to Team Canada's roster, head coach John Cooper said on Saturday that it's going to be a tough call on some of the final decisions, because as you said, they are appointing players. There's no tryouts, although I guess they're watching, how guys are, how their seasons are developing. Do you think there'll be many surprises to Team Canada's roster? I believe they're going to be announcing it on Wednesday, whether who's going to be named to the team or not. I mean, goaltending in particular is kind of,
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like, what year was it that Rob Zaminer made the team?
Oh, yeah.
Was that 90? I mean, that was...
that was 94, I think.
Or whatever year that was. I mean, so there were surprises back then. But no, I mean, I think the question is, what are they going to do with a Mark Stone and a Matt Barzal because they're hurt? Zach Hyman, I mentioned. Alex Lafreniere was really hot. Now he's not so hot. The Rangers are struggling. So, there could be around that, but the gut for the team is we know who's going to play, for Team Canada. And I do think if there's an interesting component to Team Canada, it's how on the surface, this is by far the weakest group of goaltenders they will have had for I don't want to call this a major international event. What do I want to call this? For a noteworthy best on best and an NHL competition. This is, I'm guessing it's going to be Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson and maybe Cam Talbot or somebody else. But we really are, there are no great Canadian goalies out there. So, from the years where back in 72 it was Tony Esposito and Ken Dryden, and then 76 it was Rogie Vachon, and then on and on and on, and more recently Martin Brodeur, and et cetera, et cetera.
Carey Price.
Carey Price. And now we're into Aiden Hill, who won a Stanley Cup and is certainly a good NHL goalie. And Logan Thompson has been a really great story this year with Washington. But so that'll be interesting to see who they pick and who's going to start and how they use them. What they're going to do with all those. We all remember back in, was it 2002? I always get these years remembered. Yeah, I think it was 2002.
Talking about Salt Lake City.
When they took out, Curtis Joseph and Martin Brodeur, right?
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
No, we're not going to see that. He left the Leafs after that, probably because of that. Yeah.
So I don't think if Logan Thompson takes over from Cam Talbot, the nation's going to be in an uproar. But it'll be, from a hockey point of view, it'll be interesting. And look, there's an opportunity for one of those guys to completely change the trajectory and the appearance of their career. If they were to come in, win the job, and play brilliantly, and Canada were to win, that would be something that would really change the way people look at them.
Do you think Morgan Riley has a chance to get named to the defense?
I sort of don't think so, but maybe,
Yeah. Mitch Marner, obviously, he's going to be on the team. We kind of know that.
What about Tanev? Because, we're talking about goaltending, and I think you need a really strong D. So is he making a case for himself right now?
No.
This
is, okay. I think he's been a great addition. And, for a defensive defenseman, I love watching him play. And I think, Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been fun to watch play too.
He's probably going to make Team Sweden though.
Is he? Yeah. So,
yes.
You see, some of these things I'm like, are they okay?
Yeah.
If they were to win if Chris Tanev were to get to go and try out for the team and then become to them like Gary Bergman was in 72 to Team Canada. That would be a great story, but we're all robbed of those stories now because of the sensitivities of the modern NHL player. They don't want to, be put in that situation. So, I mean, I think you're going to see, it'll be Alex Pietrangelo and guys like that.
Yeah.
Guys who have played for Canada before.
All right. Well, Chris, any more questions you have for Damien?
No, I think we're good. We covered.
That's it.
Covered a lot. That's it.
That's it for today.
That's it for today.
You know
What do you guys think? Are you guys happier with what you're seeing from the Leafs than what you were seeing last year?
Oh, I think,
sure. Yeah. I think it's different that they're playing. Again, I'm thinking that the way they're playing now is why they're getting all the injuries too. Because they got a little bit more jam in their game. And and so now they're just not used to that, and they're not getting in the right, not picking their spots right and getting these injuries. But I don't know. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but whether or not it can stick is the thing. Like to go all is a long season, right?
And
so
do you guys think when we're sitting here next year talking, provided I get invited back a year from now when you're doing your 300th episode or whatever, do you think Mitch Marner will be a Leaf beyond this year?
Well, I was going to ask you your thoughts on that. But
I asked you first.
Yes, I know. I personally think yes. But I think it all depends on if they decide to sign him kind of in the new year, right around when they signed, Willie last year. I think that's kind of the best hope for that. I mean, cause really there's a lot of teams that that have a lot more cap space than we do, that some teams that even need to, get up to the floor or whatever. There's teams that are going to throw a lot more money at him. If he wants to be paid like Austin Matthews, he might get that from someplace else. So he's not going to get that from the Leafs. I think that they've kind of established Matthews as their sort of cap ceiling there. And,
but the two things we got, or the Leafs got, are we have the extra year that we can offer him.
Yeah.
And then we have also, he loves playing here. It's his hometown. Yeah. So that depends on
where's he going to go?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where, I mean, he could go to Utah.
Yeah. You want to go play in Utah for 12,000 people every night?
Yeah.
You want to go play in Ottawa?
Well, that's what it boils down to. It's like going to be totally up to him. Like you said, he really has, he's building more and more leverage every game, especially without Austin Matthews in the lineup. Like this year, he is really people talk about how he can drive a line, but he's driving the whole team really, because he's playing in so many situations. He's, basically the main penalty killer as well. So yeah, he's more and more in the driver's seat with every game.
Oh yeah, but he is and he isn't, because I say, where's he going to go? I think the biggest danger of a team let's say the New York Rangers decide they're going to dump a whole bunch of guys and clear cap space and go after free agents, and they decide they're going to make Mitch Marner the centerpiece of their team. Let's just say that for a second. Yeah. Well, then they can probably do that. Or, a team like the Philadelphia Flyers, with a young group of guys, that they might be able to do. So if they're a team out there, the Detroit Red Wings, if they decide they want to clear cap space and make Mitch Marner the target,
they can have a magic man again.
But I mean, the things that people see about Mitch Marner and everybody sees. And are you really going to give him $13-14 million and say, this is our guy and he's going to run our team for the next decade? We'll see.
Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to. If there's a market like that, another original six team say that, clear space, like you said, and he's going to be the guy, because he's never going to be for sure the guy here. He might be the guy 1B here, Yeah.
I mean, I think that's less of a thing in hockey. Yeah. Because any intelligent hockey player knows that Evgeny Malkin knows he's better because he plays with Sidney Crosby and Leon Draisaitl. He doesn't need to be the guy in Edmonton. He needs other good players to play with.
Yeah.
That's what you really need.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the interesting part of this equation too becomes, what are they going to do with John Tavares? Like, where would they be without John Tavares?
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
know.
are you just going to, so his 11 million comes off the book. So you could give that all to Mitch Martin if you want. But boy, I mean, John Tavares has been a good player for them right now. And
For sure. And I think he would like to sign sooner than later from like what I'm hearing. But they're the Leafs are sort of, waiting on that a little bit. So probably because they want to know some cap certainty maybe around the Marner deal. And, like the other things that we've talked about, having to, fortify the roster with some more scoring depth and maybe another center. So, it's going to be very interesting as we turn the corner to the new year. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much, Damien. And we probably will get you on sooner than a year from now. So anyways,
definitely sooner than our 300th episode. That's for
sure.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
All right. So we thank Damien once again for being a guest. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a great interview by Damien. I liked how he asked us a couple of questions as to what.
Yes, the broadcaster in him, interviewer came out at the end there.
Yeah, and just his comments overall on the Leafs and especially Team Canada too, right? Because he knows a lot about the history going back to '72 and that. And
the thing that struck me was he's talking about how players used to audition for this team, and I totally forgot all about that. And I remember vividly as soon as he said that, I was like, and like Wendell Clark got cut from the team, and how disappointing that would have been for players at that time. But it got me thinking, like, is that something that could potentially fuel a guy's game? Or the reverse, but we'll, like Damien said, we're never going to find out because, players today, they don't want to go through that. Yeah. Although like they do have camps, but for this particular one, they didn't have that, mainly probably because it's like not a real tournament. But I'm assuming that going into the Olympic year, there will be some skates and some camps and so it's
it was totally
kind of a bit of an audition
back then with the Canada Cup. When he said that, I remember as a kid, like that's what you, or in my teenage years, I guess, when I was like, I remember like in August, because normally those tournaments or events, they were like Canada Cup, were held in like September, right, or late August. So then in August, all the fans were like really glued on these tryout camps. Like we were just like the attention to it and everything, and who's there and who's going to get cut, like that. I totally forgot about that, but that was like he said, like Damien said, it was something that that added to the event, right? All right. So anyhow, the Leafs now, as mentioned earlier, is going to be a lot busier for December. And they're going to have 15 games in 31 days. So basically every other night they're going to be playing.
Woohoo!
Yay. So great for the fans, but like we were saying, hopefully the injuries for the Leafs, that the infirmary gets a lot better with the players getting let out of the infirmary. So this week they play the Blackhawks, the Predators, and then they play their 5th back-to-back set of games, basically playing the Capitals on Friday night at home and then in Pittsburgh on Saturday night.
Well, I guess that's not too bad since that Pittsburgh trip is like a pretty short one. So yeah. It's not that bad. And then the following week, the Leafs play next Tuesday in New Jersey. So it's another showdown with Sheldon Keefe. And then they come home to play the Ducks on the following Thursday. So
so that one should be a guaranteed win. And I mean, there's tomorrow night versus on the Blackhawks game, that should be a win as well. And the Predators game should be interesting because I had that as my team that is basically through the first quarter of the season not doing so well, and but we'll see what happens there.
They seem to be playing a little bit better now.
Yeah, but yeah, and then the Capitals is it's a home game on a Friday night. It's funny how we don't have very many Saturday night games, so home game on Friday night, Saturday night they're on the road in Pittsburgh. And then the New Jersey game, I expect a little bit better from Sheldon Keefe's team.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup. Just to see how we stack up against them. They're kind of like I think their game is a little bit more of, how our game used to be, ironically, kind of high flying, possession type game. But they got a lot of good young stars on that team, and they're getting decent goaltending now. So, we'll see what happens there. And I think they're still leading the league too at this point. They were in first. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Sheldon Keefe, well, he is a good coach, right? Like, it's not like he wasn't.
I mean, he's like 100 points a season. I'm pretty sure they're going to end up the same there. So it'll be
interesting to see playoff wise, like how it worked out with that roster with him behind the bench. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll have a lot more Leafs talk next week, that's for sure, when it comes to the games. No shortage of that. We'll be back next week with an episode of Leafs Quick Hits, where we will review all the games of the week and keep you up to date on all the Leafs news. If you watch the show on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and you won't miss an episode, or hit that follow button if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our show. Also, we would love to hear from you. Be sure to leave us a rating, review, and if you are listening on Spotify, answer our poll question. Simple yes or no. Click that button. All you do is scroll up while you're listening past the description, and that poll question is there on Spotify.
Maybe it'd be better if they put the poll kind of higher up.
Right.
I don't know.
I was thinking maybe like a pop-up.
Yeah, or something
right in your
like
face,
that.
Right? But
Spotify,
anyhow.
if you're listening, maybe you need to change this. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, feedback from our listeners is so important, and we thank you for taking the time.
And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at Ko-fi.com. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And as always, thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for everything that they do.
And we thank you, as always, for listening and watching Ladies Talkin' Leafs, presented by Bet Online. Till next time, go Leafs, go.
Do you believe?